Hi, I'm George and welcome to the Cellar Door, New Zealand. Coming up on today's show, I catch up with head winemaker Patrick at Brancott Estate. But right now, I'm at the Marlborough Food and Wine Festival, an annual event showcasing the best of what the region has to offer. Enjoy the show and I'll see you a little later on. New Zealand's original and longest running wine festival takes place in Marlborough every year, hosting over 40 local wineries, 25 restaurant stalls and food trucks, celebrity chefs, winemaking masterclasses, a Fashion in the Vines competition and a stellar lineup of top Kiwi bands. The renowned Brancott Estate has been the home of this festival for 36 years. Known for creating the first of the now world-famous Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc, Brancott Estate has established itself as the heart of the Marlborough wine industry. 11 years after beginning his career in the wine industry as a cellar hand at Brancott Estate, Patrick went on to be named New Zealand Winemaker of the Year in 2001. Hello, Patrick.
Morning.
We're at Brancott Estate. You are the head winemaker. This cellar door is something else. It's incredible. How old is it?
We built this in 2011, and it was a year actually we sponsored the Rugby World Cup, and so we had lots of visitors coming in. We thought, we need to showcase our wines with a fabulous experience. So,
and wines and vines.
Exactly. We used an architect, Auckland-based architect called Fear and Hay. So they've won a lot of design awards, and they did for this building as well. And I think, if you stand back the other side of the vineyard and look back, you hardly notice it on the hill. It sort of blends into the surroundings, and it's a place to experience the view. To me, it's an amazing view.
Tell us a little bit about this incredible winery.
This was the first commercial vineyard in Marlborough, planted.
And the first vines planted.
Back in 1973. So.
It's pretty special.
Yeah, it seems like a long time ago, but actually in terms of wine history, most regions around the world are much, much older, so I think we're still a very young industry here. But literally the site straight below us here is the block which was the very first Sauvignon Blanc in Marlborough.
It's pretty special.
Yeah, amazing, and it's really what has defined the New Zealand wine industry. If you look at the success with exports and so on, it's very much been driven around Sauvignon Blanc.
So Brancott put Sauv Blanc on the world map?
Very much so, yeah. And it was good luck or good management. The first varieties we planted were things like Riesling and Cabernet, but we were lucky enough only 2 years later to follow up and do a trial with Sauvignon Blanc. And even those very first wines really stood out on the world stage.
And here we are.
Here we are.
So it's grown and grown, and you have been here for a little while.
Yeah, 30 years with Brancott Estate, and I feel very privileged to have been part of this amazing part of New Zealand wine history, really from very humble beginnings to really an international success. Brancott Estate originally was Montana Wines and founded by the Jukic family, Croatian immigrants in Auckland, and they looked to expand their business, and it was in the early 70s, 1973, that they took their chance on Marlborough. And it was in a region which was sheep and some cropping, but an area seen as being far too cool to grow grapes.
It's hard to imagine Marlborough without Sauv Blanc and wines everywhere.
Yeah, it is.
It's been very different.
Well, even when I came down, I moved down here in 1994, and was only sort of a couple of thousand hectares planted in the region at that stage, so there's still a lot of sheep and cropping and quite mixed. And now pretty much the valley is full. There's 27,000 hectares of grapes. So there's a few farmers holding on to their little parcels of land, but most of it is covered in grapes now.
So was this vista quite different when you started?
Yes, it was as well. Yeah, it's all been sort of filled in over the years, and it was really the 90s that saw that rapid expansion in the early 2000s. There's very little land available now, but I think that's a really good thing as well. It's about premiumising our offering and getting the most off the land we have here.
So focusing on what's there and...
Correct, and creating new wine styles, new expressions, and just being better at what we do.
So you were one of the first wineries, or the first winery that took Sauv Blanc to the UK.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yeah, we did. And that was in the early 80s, 1982 were our first exports. Literally the first Sauvignon Blanc we made off here was 1979. And I think we're lucky that right in those early days it was seen as being something completely different, and really by the end of the 80s, the 1989 actually won an award as the best Sauvignon Blanc in the world.
Well, that's good enough for me. Time to try this Marlborough classic. Okay, Patrick, we have some wines.
Yeah, well, we've talked about the vineyards, and
Yes.
let's have a look at Sauvignon Blanc from Marlborough. And to
So
me,
this is what put
really,
Marlborough on the map.
this is what set up the industry, I believe. It's so we started making this in 1979, so we're 41st attempt, and the style has evolved over that time, but I think it's still very true to type. It really explains what this region is about.
So what sort of changes have you seen in the style?
Look, originally all the fruit was off this vineyard, because that was the only Sauvignon Blanc we had planted in Melbourne. We do have plantings right across the region now. To me, this is a Marlborough expression. It shows the little nuances you get with all the sub-regions, some of the ripe tropical notes, some of the more grassy notes, but importantly, a real freshness about the wine.
Delicious. And so where does this sit in the portfolio?
So this is what we call our classic range. It's the one which is actually most available and the one we export to the UK, to Australia, to the US, all over the globe. And chances are if someone overseas has tried a New Zealand wine, they've actually tried this one.
This is it?
Yeah.
Great.
So, the aroma's
lovely
just
fresh.
They just leap out of the glass, and it's, as I said, it's combining some of those sort of stone fruit and passion fruit and guava notes, but also some of those sort of fresh herbal characters as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have warm days in the summer. It never gets to searing heat, but importantly, the nighttime temperatures actually go down pretty low, and what that does is retain natural acidity in the wine, and it's that acidity in the wine that I think creates real clarity and freshness and makes the wines hang on the palate.
I didn't get it as much from the nose, but that stone fruit is really, like, as soon as you taste it, you get that
Yes.
that kind of fruit forward.
It's like biting into a fresh peach, isn't it?
Yeah,
And it's and so that acidity is so much part of the style as well, where it just hangs on the palate and the flavours linger. And to me, it also makes it go very well with food. Food, often oily dishes and so on, often cry out for some acidity
to cut through.
Exactly.
That's lovely. That's so balanced. The Marlborough Falcon Trust was established in 2009 with an aim to increase the numbers of the New Zealand falcon, New Zealand's most endangered bird of prey. And since 2010, Brancott Estate has supported the Marlborough Falcon Trust by donating $1 from the sale of every bottle of Brancott Estate living land and housing a conservation and breeding aviary on the vineyard.
Here we go.
So Fern is your ambassador.
So yes, this is Fern.
Hi. And you're
Say
Lizzie?
hello, and I'm Lizzie.
Auntie Lizzie.
Auntie Lizzie. So I've been working with the Trust for 3 years. And Fern is a massive part of what we do at the Marlborough Falcon Trust.
And so Fern's 8?
So Fern is 8, she's a female. They normally live in the wild to about maybe 9 or 10, but in captivity about 18, 19. Okay. So she's lucky. Yeah.
And Fern goes around to schools and things?
She does. So we have a massive education program, which Dinah and I both do. So Diana
is mum.
So Diana's mum. So at the Trust, it's Diana and myself and some volunteers as well. In the winter months, we take her to schools. We go to kindergartens as well. Aww. And she's very sweet. She even lets 3-year-olds hand feed her. And
really?
She's got a beautiful disposition. So we can only see schools in the Marlborough region, and that's because Fern jumps in the car with us. And if it's a long journey, we have to feed her too much on the way. And she's disinterested by the time we get there. Yeah. So she is what we call fed up. So the term fed up is a falconry term, and it means that you're full and you don't want to do anymore.
Is that where it comes from?
It is, yeah. And also the term wrapped around your little finger is from falconry too.
Is it?
It means I have full control because I have wrapped her around my finger. Right now she isn't.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah.
So what's your background other than etymology?
No, I'm actually a primary school teacher, so
really?
I know I've just landed myself a wonderful job. But no,
Is that a falconry term as well?
Yeah. No, I've got the job because I do the school visits.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. But Diana has got a massive background in birds. She does all the rehabbing for the Marlborough Nelson region. Yeah, so everybody brings birds to her.
They rehabilitate and they breed?
We do. So a big part of what we do is rehabilitation. Majority of our birds, they can't be released into the wild. So we have a lot of eye injuries coming to us. So these birds can get up to 180 kilometres an hour. So with that comes injuries, of course. So when they're darting, excuse me. So when they're darting through fences, or often twigs will come at them, and they can suffer eye injuries. We also have birds with we've got a bird with one wing up the top there. So we have 5 breeding pairs, and most of the time we release about 12 to 15 chicks into the wild each season. Sometimes they even have double clutches, so we're pretty lucky then as well.
What's a double clutch?
Oh, sorry, a double clutch is where so they'll lay 3 to 4 eggs, and sometimes that even happens twice in one season. So so we're pretty lucky with that.
Lots of babies.
But there's only about 6,000 falcon left in New Zealand. So if you compare that to say the kiwi, I think there's about 68,000, but they're quite a rare bird. And they're the bird on our $20 note. Yeah. So they're a bit of a national treasure. No, Fern does exactly what she wants. And they say don't work with birds and children, and we do. And we do both of them. Yeah.
It's very brave.
Yeah. Brancott have been, they've been amazing to the Falcon Trust. They're our major sponsor, and stay right there, thank you. And it just means that you get to come down and meet one of these birds face to face. A lot of people obviously don't even see them in the wild because they're so rare. So to actually come and be this close to a New Zealand falcon is pretty special.
Is she prepping for the experience?
She's part of the experience. Normally she'll fly for us. Today didn't go quite so well because she had flown yesterday. She wasn't meant to. She got out. And she went and probably ate.
Had a feast.
Yeah, she ate locusts and whatever else she found. So let's see if she wants to come to you now. Right, so I'm going to put not my glove, so you never hand over your own glove as a falconer.
Okay.
They eat rabbit. We have restaurant quality quail that we offer them.
Fern's a fancy lady.
I know, they're very lucky. So it's a lot to do with their diet is why we have such a successful breeding program. Yeah.
And so I just hold it like that?
Yeah, if you hold it like that. You can tap with your other hand to show her that you've got the goods. She's very nice, Fern.
Fern, come on over.
Yeah, go on.
Just ignore the cameras.
You'd think right now that she's lost her nerve.
Either that or she's making us wait.
The fame got to you. Come on, girl. Come on. Oh, you just took it. I'm going to give you the bone, okay? So she'll come to you. So this means that you now, it's like you're the trainer.
Like
okay?
that?
So just try not let go of it.
All right.
Okay. Yeah, so she'll jump on now and then she'll come.
You really don't want to, do you? Come on, Finn.
Come on, Finn.
There you go.
There we go. No.
I got 1 foot.
Come on. It's only because she's been doing this for a wee while already. Come on, sweetie. No!
Finn the Falcon is not a fan. Doesn't seem to be working for me. Well, that didn't go quite according to plan, but I know some wine waiting for me that will, so I'm heading back to the Cellar Door.
I've stayed very loyal to this company because I'm really passionate about what we do as a business. And the team I work with is amazing. There's so many other people who've been a very long time with the company as well. And so I think that that combined knowledge really makes Brancott Estate what it is. To me, it's actually understanding what every parcel of grapes delivers. And so having a history and knowing how that block performed in the past, really have a good feel for what to do with those grapes the next vintage and over time evolve styles as well.
And I suppose experimenting and progressing is something that is quite important to Brancott.
Hugely, yeah. So consumer, what they're looking for, wine styles have changed over time. And I think as we've learnt more about the land, we've driven quite different styles as well. Yeah, with Sauvignon Blanc, some of the beautiful stone fruit characters and this really nice line of acidity and a real freshness to the wines. But I think particularly the soil types here contribute to the mouthfeel properties of the wine and texture. And over the years we've planted vineyards all over Marlborough, and I keep on coming back to Brancott Vineyard here as really providing our very top grapes. When it comes to the letter series, the B, that is all the fruit is off Brancott Vineyard here. So
that's right here.
Literally straight down below us, and there's the older clay-based soils on this particular vineyard, which really impart that sort of richness to the palate and sort of great structure. We've been making this for about 30 years, and so the fruit is all off Brancott Vineyard here, and literally select parcels from this vineyard. So we've got an inherent understanding of this vineyard site and what each block imparts, and it might be a different root stock or slightly different trellis system, which gives you more concentration of flavour, and we'll end up in this wine here.
So it really is an expression of exactly where we are.
Yeah, exactly. So it will be the same level of acidity, but I think with the more the riper, richer flavours and a bit more concentration, it will almost seem sort of broader and a bit more mellow and almost oily textured.
Okay,
so,
yep.
I've never tried that. Yes, once again, you sort of see the hue. They're really bright and very sort of pale straw colour, often green hints to the colour.
Yeah. Yeah, I see what you mean about that oily kind of mouthfeel.
Yeah. It sort of coats the mouth, and we use a little bit of oak with this wine.
Oh, sure.
But larger format oak vat, so we don't want any oak showing in the wine.
Yeah, I'm not getting any of that.
Yeah, but it's there almost as support and to provide sort of textural interest. Almost as savoury complexity. This style will happily go for 5 years, but generally I'm sort of saying they're best drunk in the first 2 years. But we also make a style which is incredibly age-worthy. It will be 10 years plus, all hand-harvested fruit, wild fermentation, and very different expression. Maybe we would look at that one over lunch.
That sounds great.
The aroma of Sauvignon Blanc, and it's really the trademark of what makes Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc stand out. But we've measured those compounds, and they're naturally occurring from the grapes, but they exist at levels about 100-fold of any other country.
Oh, wow.
So it's the climate we have, it's the high UV light levels. I think more so that than the soil types, because right across Marlborough on different soils, we are getting those
that same
amazing aromas.
So there's nothing like it in the world?
No, and we sort of obviously measure Sauvignon Blancs from other other countries and even other regions in New Zealand, and they're not at those sort of same levels.
Due to the impact of COVID-19 on visitor numbers to Marlborough, the Brancott Estate Cellar Door is closed indefinitely. Next, Patrick is taking me out into the vineyards to see Brancott's striking sculpture.
So we're here on Brancott Vineyard, and it's one of the older Sauvignon Blanc blocks, and so this would have been replanted on grafted rootstock in the 90s, and would go to our classic Sauvignon Blanc program.
We're quite close to your draw.
Yes.
Brancott commissioned New York-based designer Dror Ben-Shatrid to create a work that captured their story. After spending some time drawing inspiration from the estate, Dror created this incredible sculpture that reflects the transformation of both the region and the vineyards themselves. There it is.
There it is. It's called Understanding. Because as Dror said, to truly understand something, you had to stand underneath it.
Can we stand underneath it?
Yes, let's head over there.
The installation was assembled as a flat construction and then unfolded to its current position in October 2017. It feels a lot bigger than like from up on at the winery.
Yeah, it does.
Oh, so these are the bits that kind of interlock.
That's right.
Visitors are invited to step inside the installation to view it from within.
And then we crafted a couple of Cellar Door exclusive wines. And you see it on the packaging, this sort of lattice work as well.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, a great reason to come and visit the Cellar Door. These wines are not available elsewhere. And
Just here?
Just here.
Wow, that's the wind, right? Making
Yeah.
that. And you've got another artwork on the ground as well.
Yeah, we have a sculpture which was put in to commemorate really the first plantings of vines here in Marlborough. So we'll go and have a look at that next. So we have a little plaque here commemorating Queen Elizabeth II's visit to Brancott Vineyard here.
She had a visit,
Yeah,
and she did some hard yakka.
She planted a vine. She did indeed. So
How long before you started was this?
that was literally a week before I started with the company. So there we are. I knew it was a good company to work for when the Queen visited.
Yeah, we had the royal endorsement.
Exactly.
So we've got your second piece of art.
Yeah, this was put up a few years ago. I think it's a fantastic quote. So Frank Yukich, when he first established this vineyard in Marlborough back in '73, and remember at that stage it was sheep country and cropping, and no one ever thought you could plant vines in Marlborough. Well, he made a comment.
And he was right.
How true he was. So, yeah, visionary.
Patrick has one more wine for me to taste, their equally historic Pinot Noir.
I mentioned before we were the first to plant Sauvignon Blanc in Marlborough, also the first to plant Pinot Noir.
Oh, really?
And actually the same year, so back in the mid-70s. And so a lot of people probably don't realise that, but it's, yeah, Pinot Noir is a big part of our history too.
Just as long.
Yeah.
This is from the vineyard just that way?
Correct. Yeah, just on the up on the foothills of the Wither Hills and at the very top end of Brancott Vineyard. It's a block we call the Terraces block, and hence the T on the label.
Beautiful colour.
So 2017 vintage, this one. And those clay-based soils just giving you like a slightly darker fruit expression and a bit more structure than you will get off the young river soils you can also get in Marlborough.
So we're looking for the classic Pinot Noir notes?
Yeah, some of the nice sort of berry notes. So as I said, it's pushing more into the darker fruit notes. So, yeah,
That rich kind of.
Yeah. And Pinot Noir is a variety which really needs cool climate as well, and to give you that sort of perfume and those seductive notes. If you grow Pinot Noir in a hot climate, they become sort of jammy and they end up tasting quite extracted. But Pinot Noir, it's an elegant grape, and it needs finesse.
Yeah. That's delicious.
Yeah, so for New Zealand, Pinot Noir is an incredibly important variety. It's second only to Sauvignon Blanc in terms of wine exports and so on. As I said, it's another aromatic variety. The other varieties which do really well are things like Pinot Gris. Once again, it's an aromatic variety.
Yeah.
We have Sauvignon Gris planted here, for example.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, it's once again, we were the first to plant it here in Marlborough, and it's akin to Sauvignon Blanc, but the acidity is softer. It's almost like a Pinot Gris palate, but with Sauvignon Blanc aromas.
Oh, yum.
So I think it's delicious wines, really, really amazing.
Well, that sounds like another one for lunch.
Certainly is.
Yeah. Shall we?
Why not?
Excellent. So, Patrick, it's lunchtime. What are we going to drink?
Well, you asked before about favourites. Let's bring out one of my favourites. So, Brancott Estate Chosen Rose, and named because literally it is of chosen rose here on Brancott Vineyard. The rose we think gives us the best concentration, power and intensity of flavour. All hand harvested, whole bunch pressed, wild fermented, so using natural yeast, and fermented in large format oak vats. So try this.
I will, thank you. What a fabulous day. What a view. Look at this lunch. Patrick, thank you for having me. Thank you for the tour.
It's been a pleasure. Always enjoyed sharing our wines.
Yeah, well, I've enjoyed having them shared with me. Thank you so much.
Cheers.